right.
I'm excited about what we've got on tap today.
Me too. Me too. Hi, everybody. I'm Andrew Gautron, and here is Kirk Deininger. We're both from Autocene. And today's, in the webinar series, we're going to be talking about pre-qualification and contractors. So basically, kind of two different kind of concepts. Basically, for our applications today are qualifications around certain aspects of your business, whether or not it applies to kind of pre-qual, and also kind of profile management. This idea that we have our external user set and our internal user set today. That we'll also be talking about in kind of the context of this contractor management here. So if you're new to Autocene today, what we're going to be doing is I'll give you a brief overview kind of what Autocene is. Autocene is a web-based no-code platform. You can kind of see that on the screen right here. We're on one of our demo environments. Being a no-code environment, what it means is that you can build out applications that really meet out different needs that usually you'd go towards, say, a point solution or build it in-house, right? So today, kind of going off of that, since we're entirely web-based, I want you to keep in mind that pretty much Autocene can be phased out to a number of different groups, a number of different people, be it kind of external or internal to your organization. Today's applications that we're going to be showcasing really kind of cover both of those avenues there. Now I'm at the web portal here. Typically, what you're going to be doing in it is you're going to be logging in. For your internal organization, logins could consist of things that integrate with your single sign-on and your authentication systems. Things like Workday, PeopleSoft, your Active Directory, those multi-factor authentications that go through, say, ADFS or utilize SAML. All those types of things are doable within Autocene. So that means you can leverage those systems to provide your organization a login. You can also provide logins to people who are external to your organization as well. So you would have a number of different portals that you can kind of leverage out to your external parties, like those contractors we're going to be talking today. And they'll be able to have their profiles and hierarchy and the roles that come along with them be reflected within the Autocene environment there. Now, once you log in, you're greeted with the home page. The homepage really is kind of the hub for a person to get a glance at what's happening with their profile and what certain things that they're going to be doing in terms of their daily business needs or kind of interacting with different processes that may come in contact with their job there. Now, talking about those profiles before, right? So every person has a different profile. And those profiles conform to those roles, right? So those roles will begin to place that person into certain avenues of the platform. That means that if I was in human resources, say, maybe I would only have access to human resource elements. The same is with our kind of pre-qualification application suite today. Now, I'm logged in. What we're going to do is we're going to go over to the Applications tab here. The Applications tab is really the home of all the different apps that reside on your Autocene environment. So again, I talked a little bit about human resources. Well, maybe you have human resources, finance, these contractors, your internal organization, all under one portal. This is where those applications begin to show and hide and be made relevant really to the person who is going to be accessing this, right? So the first thing that we're going to talk about is like, okay, we are able to onboard our users internally to the organization. Well, how do we begin to onboard those who are external, right? So the first part of our really kind of pre-qualification suite of applications here is the login request. And this is the first app that we're going to talk about. Now this application, very simple kind of concept, right? This application can be phased out in a number of different ways. So if I was going to say pull up a page that I haven't logged into yet, and let's say that we face this page out, what that means is that we can actually host this individual application by itself. That means a person can come in, they can go, okay, I want a new account. I may be a part of Autocene. Here's my contact name and my email address. I can go in and I could submit that request for a login. This allows your users to your users who are not within the system to gain access. So you can have things like miniature workflow behind the scenes to do the proper approvals of this. You can then leverage that to create the accounts within your Autocene environment. Now, once a person has been let into the environment, so once that submission has gone through, that account can go through that workflow process of approval and all that, and then you can begin the journey in where that person's going to begin defining their profile. Now, defining the profile. So inherently, Autocene has individual user profiles, right? This is the things that we talked about, roles, responsibilities of that person. However, you can begin to define what a company profile looks like within your Autocene environment. And again, Autocene's not going to be enforcing what those profiles look like. Rather, you can really begin to shape the information and the required attributes of those profiles from these applications. So in terms of this customer here, what they have is a couple of different pages that really define out the business profile and how that company can update their profile information. So the initial onboard of the company, they're going to be filling out their legal business name, any tax IDs, the structure, general information about where that company is. And again, you can go in, you can edit that information and update that information. And as we're going through, I just want to note things like text boxes, radio buttons, drop downs to connected databases like pick lists, and that's all doable within Autocene. So just keep that in mind as we go through. That type of user experience is kind of across the board for all these applications. Now this company can solely manage their profile. We've basically defined this profile from the ground up, right? They can add their contacts, maybe a main contact. You may want to add a new contact to that. So you can have your list of employees begin to be defined out within the platform itself. Again, you're defining that structure and how it meets your business needs, right? The same is with affiliations. So for this customer, they required affiliations to be a part of that profile. You may or may not need that. So you could have this certain module within your application come into play where you can add maybe an affiliate company to that profile and begin the management of that. So kind of the core concept around this idea of a profile, even though we are kind of profiling the contractor here and their business, this type of module can be used in a number of different ways that you can drag and drop that framework into pretty much any Autocene environment to control kind of relevant information that you may need to facilitate your business process. So we may have a customer that uses these profiles to regularly order product from a vendor. That vendor can upkeep their profile. Or maybe we leverage these profiles to manage access to a certain amount of different Autocene applications. You can do that as well. Just that concept and that framework is openly available to you in the environment, and you can begin to add and take away that accordingly. So, okay, so we have our employees, we have our company profile here. How can we begin to interact with objects that are attributed to our company? And that's where we can get into our projects and our qualifications for that company. So we can go into project evaluations and we can go into our pre-qualification application here. And again, as I'm clicking start, each of these is its own separate module, its own separate application within Autocene. Applications are things that are either like the user interface that you just saw with the company profile, where you can interact with information. Or it could be as something simple as our employee onboard, where you receive those requests in email to showcase somebody's being onboarded or taking on onboarding. Or it could be a reporting dashboard. So I just want you to keep that in mind as we go through here. So as this company kind of goes through and say engages with different projects, we can begin to attribute things like evaluations and accreditations to this company. So we have a couple of sample projects here that are attributed to my company, which is our ABC company that we talked about over here. I can go in and I can begin to view those different projects. So I can upkeep current projects. There may be certain classifications that the state enforces or the county enforces for classifying that project. And then we have performance evaluations that come after that project has ended. So for things like bidding processes that engage with kind of vendor bids or services in your organization, you can have follow-ups for things like evaluations or even public evaluations against that about the project quality of what happened during that. And again, this can be as extensive as you want it to be. So things that I might add to this application, if I was going to say take it on, are things like different scores to be listed out. Things like was project management good? Or was sourcing of materials good? So on a score of 1 to 10, etc., etc. So these types of things you can begin to take away and add to your applications. And we at Autocene, we have a huge library of applications that you can really leverage to make your own. You can think of those as like templates that you can take. You can strip out everything if you wanted to out of that template, but you can really add and take away and really make that template your own. Much like if you were to pull up, say, a Microsoft Word document and say, design a new resume. Well, they have a bunch of different resume templates that you would use. Well, you can take away or add to those templates. Our system acts pretty much the same way, where you're able to add certain modules. Maybe you want a workflow behind these evaluations, or maybe you want reporting or different screens and dashboards. You can add and take away that from that application in that set, right? So this begins to define our company. How are they scoring with evaluations, right? Well, those evaluations might play into their pre-qualification application. So I may need to, much like a resume, get a bunch of evaluations from past projects to define out my pre-qualification application here. Now, the pre-qualification application can reside on pretty much, say, inheriting information from other projects and that initial profile. But in this case, what we're doing is we're kind of supplying a walkthrough for that person to go through their pre-qualification so that they're able to add all the information that they need to add to, that they need to add to do a pre-qualification, right? So the first thing is our company information. Again, we're leveraging that profile that we have so the person doesn't need to fill this out. There may be a number of different things that this company needs to utilize the same information for across your suite of applications. That means you are saving that user time because they no longer have to rekey information in each different element here. Now, because we could do that, we can pretty much go to the next step for them, right? So by going to the next step, we enter in the OSHA kind of lens here. We're able to supply the information. And again, I talked about the different types of inputs you can begin to leverage in Autocene, things like our radio buttons, date pickers, and text fields. But I just want to talk a little bit about kind of attachment control. So a lot of these application suites leverage documents in a lot of different ways. You may have a SharePoint directory that you utilize in your business process, or a shared drive, or some sort of content management system. Well, we at Autocene, what we can do is we can actually leverage our existing platform to store those attachments. So if I was going to go in and I was going to say select this PDF, I can attach that, and Autocene can save and hold that document. So you can have that structure that you would find with, say, a shared drive or that SharePoint folder in the same way within Autocene. Or you can leverage those assets. There's nothing to say that you can't use your existing infrastructure to fulfill the document management that you need. So Autocene can connect to those kinds of assets via Autocene Passport, which is our integration engine and a piece of middleware that also does data manipulation. So as I continue on, basically the application is going to walk through, give me bite-sized bits of information that I need to fill out. What are the core kind of takeaways from this kind of process? Number one, we're streamlining the process and giving the user an overview of the types of things that they can expect of the pre-qualification application. Okay, so everything to deal with OSHA is on one page. Everything to deal with personnel, everything to do with classifications is on its own page. And we're able to restrict that person to ensure that we get the information that we require in that moment. You can have things like validations, checking that if it's a viable trade account or license number, or if it's a viable kind of integrity questionnaire. You could have a scoring system behind the scenes check in with what they're answering as they walk through that questionnaire. These types of things can drastically reduce the amount of back and forth that you may be doing with your business process currently. That means, is there missing information? Is there bad information? Maybe the person has uploaded the wrong documentation. These types of measures within your application can increase the user experience, so quality of life improvement for that person, and reduce the kind of overhead work that you may need to do to ensure that people are submitting the correct information. One of the proponents who kind of utilize this kind of framework is the Designer Selection Board of Massachusetts. They were able to pretty much eliminate all need of disqualification based on bad data or a bad application. So things like missing forms, missing documentation, they were able to remove that entirely by streamlining the process, ensuring that the person understands what they need to submit at each step. Now, this may be a lengthy process, so I just want to kind of look down here near our submit button and our save draft button. Since this is a submission application where we're submitting data, we can also save that data as a draft. So this person may be walking through this and, oh, I'm going to be pulled away. Well, I might need to save it as a draft so I can work on it later. That's totally doable within Autocene for each of your applications. It's all configuration. You could say, oh, I want a save draft feature on this application. You can do that. It can save that session and that information. Now, after that person has gone through and they submit the information, we can then begin that workflow to the next step. Okay. So we're just going to submit that information even though it's not all the way complete. What that's going to do is that's going to go to the next person here, and that's going to start out the contractor evaluation. So there's kind of two steps to this. The contractor evaluation is basically going to walk the contractor through an evaluation request for any of the projects that they went through. So again, this is our scoring that we talked about. Basically, the next recipient gets a form around the projects that they're able to fill out their scores, their comments, and anybody who is listed along with this project will get this in terms of the references supplied for the pre-qualification. Now that's great. We're kind of grabbing information, we're controlling the information and the quality of that information. How do we begin to look at that information and report on it? And that's where you can begin to define out applications that are measured for kind of KPI, those indicators, ensuring that you're getting the correct targets that you want to set, but also have the oversight of the data that's going through your system. Too often than not, you may have a solution or a homegrown solution that doesn't provide you with that kind of data oversight or the ability to view that data to the needs that you need it to perform your business responsibilities, right? So you're able to actually create these applications that act like a dashboard, and I'll go into the renewal here, and you're able to drill down on each aspect of that data that is relevant to you. So you can see that I have the general company information. I may need to change the status of where they're sitting at, so it might be back to pending because we may be waiting on something, or if we're changing certain elements, but we can pretty much walk through their entire application to see what they submitted at that time, right? And I can add additional comments, and I can go through the entire application and kind of mark this up, right? Again, this allows you to kind of review information and audit information. This is not only a reporting dashboard, but this is also kind of an information audit hub that you can do. And again, this framework is usable in kind of different contexts, right? So this means that you can take this type of library and apply it to other business processes where you want the ability to audit information or update information or report on information. It doesn't always have to be an Autocene application that you need to view that information on. You can also leverage these same applications to view data in other systems, things like Salesforce or SAP or your Microsoft Dynamics environment. Now that's great. So we basically have a suite that from start to finish, able to onboard new companies and profiles, allow them to define that profile out, allow them to upload project evaluations that we can then follow up with the personnel that were involved on those projects. And we're able to have the pre-qualification application happen where we can pull in the information that we need, right? And control that information and reduce the kind of friction that you would normally find in a multi-document process. And then lastly, looking at how you can begin to report on that information. Basically, we have a suite of applications that perform the overarching kind of suite and business process. And this is where I'm going to start talking about kind of what constitutes an Autocene application. We talked about different examples here. Well, an Autocene application, at the heart of it is are the modules that go inside of that application and the business process and its length that you define in that application. So if we were going to say take our company profile application here, the kind of modules that reside in this application are an interface with multiple screens. We have integrations that allow the person to edit and update information in a central database. So a couple of different integrations. And there's no workflow on this. Basically, you can see that there's no submission of the page or a module behind the scenes that's moving the information. Well, in this case, we have basically integrations and interfaces and kind of mechanics to make the information change. Well, an application could also be a workflow application, right? So if we go back to our actions queue here, one of your applications may require you to take action and move that information around. In this case, we have the start evaluation, but for things that are a lot simpler, like approval workflows or something along those lines, you can begin to define that out in whatever complexity that you see fit for your business process. So an application could have unlimited workflow steps within that module of the application. Or it could have multiple screens, or it could have multiple integrations. Basically, you define your application template to meet the needs that you need it to meet, right? So let's get into licensing. How does Autocene work in terms of licensing? Well, we don't charge per head. That means that no matter how many users that you have in your environment, that's not going to increase the price. We don't charge per screens in an application. So in our company profile, we had 3 screens. You can have as many different screens to your front end applications as you want. We don't charge by how long your workflows are, or where that information is going, or the transactions of that information. Simply, we do a subscription of 5 different application templates. So again, an application template is something that you define in accordance with a business process or a part of that business process, much like here. And you basically pay a subscription monthly for that. You have access to those templates. You have access to list those templates and utilize those templates however you see fit. If you want more information on that, you can definitely head over to autocene.com and view our different kind of subscription points. We definitely do bulk subscriptions in that can lower the cost. And yeah, no, that's basically it for me today. Is there anything that you want to add, Kirk?
No, I think you covered it well. Andrew, thank you for hosting us today, and we'll look forward to hearing from. If you have any questions at all, please go ahead and drop either Andrew or I a note, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Awesome. All right, everybody, thank you for joining today. Catch us next time for future webinars. We're always posting new webinars that are coming out, so keep your eyes out for that, for different use cases. Go to our website, view those use cases, how customers are currently utilizing the platform, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.
All right. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Kirk.